Good afternoon. Welcome to this presentation outlining the process and the documents used for students to implement accommodations in the classroom. If you would like additional information, please call us here at the Accessibility Resource Center. Our number is 910-521-6695, or you may email us at arc@uncp.edu. That's arc@uncp.edu. We look forward to working with you. You can also stop by our office. We're located in D.F. Lowry, room 107. We would love to see you anytime. As you can see from this slide, our mission is twofold. While we are here to ensure non-discrimination of students with disabilities via the accommodations process and other means, we're also here to help you ensure your classroom, learning environment, course materials, and course activities are accessible to all students. We are happy to talk with you more about your course specifically at your earliest convenience. So how do students qualify for services? Any student with a documented disability may apply for accommodations. Please note this is not an automatic approval. Students complete an application and furnish appropriate documentation. The mandates of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, or Section 504, require non-discrimination of students with disabilities through equal access to UNCP, which includes facilities, activities, programs, and materials. In order to ensure equal access, we have to determine how there currently is not equal access. This is determined through the interactive process with students applying for services and with the information contained in their documentation. We not only look for a diagnosis of a disability, but we also look for functional limitations of the disability in terms of how they impact major life activities, which in turn impact access to the learning environment. If there is a diagnosis but no impact indicated, then we cannot determine that the student does not have equal access, and we may require additional information and/or documentation. The official UNCP committee trained to review applications is the Documentation Review Committee. Committee members include faculty and staff members at the undergraduate and graduate level. The committee typically meets once a week throughout the calendar year so that students do not have to wait a long time for a determination. By law, we cannot require students to apply for nor implement accommodations within a set time frame. Accommodations cannot be implemented retroactively, but they may be implemented at any time throughout the semester. In terms of which disabilities are covered, any health issue that rises to the level of a disability as defined by the ADA will be accommodated at UNCP. This slide indicates the different umbrellas or categories of disability, but again, there must be functional limitations such that the student does not have equal access in order to be approved for accommodations. So why do we accommodate students? Well, first and foremost, it is the law. As an institution of higher education receiving federal funds, we are required to ensure equal access to persons with disabilities. The Americans with Disabilities Act and Amendments Act, which is the ADA or the ADAAA, covers all persons with disabilities interacting with UNCP. That may be students, employees, or guests. While Section 504 of the Rehab Act of 1973, Subpart E, covers students. The ADA is governed by the Department of Justice, and Section 504 is governed by the Office for Civil Rights, or OCR, through the U.S. Department of Education. Second, the mission and statement of distinctiveness of UNCP is to educate and embrace our diverse students, faculty, and staff who possess differing attributes based on race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability status, national origin, age, political affiliation, religion, and other characteristics. The Documentation Review Committee approves accommodations by determining how the student does not have equal access as indicated by the student's functional limitations. The accommodations are designed to mitigate or lessen, take away the functional limitations, thereby leveling the playing field and giving the student equal access. Examples of functional limitations are seeing, hearing, mobility, such as walking, standing, bending, lifting, thinking, focusing, concentration, and learning, to name a few. For a student who cannot see and uses a screen reader to access written information, a reasonable and appropriate accommodation would be to email class handouts so the screen reader can read the document to the student. Confidentiality is essential and mandated by law. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, the ADA, and Section 504 all require student information to be kept confidential unless there is a need to know by an institutional official and/or there is a release of information on file. Never discuss disability-related subject matter to include accommodations in a public area, even if the student begins the conversation. Ask the student to walk with you to your office or schedule an appointment with you. Once students are approved for accommodations, they will meet with the director or associate director to pick up an accommodations packet. This will include an accommodations letter on ARC letterhead and an instructor-student contract for each class. The accommodations letter outlines all accommodations the student has been approved for, and the contract is for the student to let you know which accommodations will be implemented in your class. Due to the need to maintain confidentiality, we tell students not to approach you in the classroom, but to make an appointment with you instead. Never sign a blank contract. You will be giving the student carte blanche for any accommodation. If you have a question about an accommodation, please contact us and we'll be happy to clarify. While you do not have to sign and return the contract immediately, you will need to implement the accommodations from that moment forward. For example, if you have a question about note-taking and we're not available to take your call, you can wait to sign the contract. But if you have a test coming up and the student is approved for extended time and a half, please ensure that student is given time and a half. The contract is a triplicate form. The top is the white copy. That's brought back to us by the student. You keep the yellow copy, the middle copy, and the student will keep the pink copy, the bottom copy. It is not a problem if you accidentally take the wrong copy. Other documents to be explained in the next few slides include a note-taker slip, tape recording agreement form, test proctoring form, and a relaxed attendance adjustment plan. According to the mandates, students are responsible for notifying you of their need to meet requests regarding accommodations, but once you have met, it's then your responsibility to ensure that the accommodations occur. Please make sure you're familiar with the accommodations paperwork and schedule a meeting that ensures you have around 10 to 15 minutes to meet with the student. This can be an extremely challenging meeting for some students because they are new to their disability, they're new to navigating their own accommodations, they're not comfortable with their disability, and/or they are intimidated by your position of expertise and authority. You will need to review all of the documents pertaining to your class and then sign the contract. The contract will also protect you in the rare case that a student chose not to implement an accommodation, meaning it's not on the contract, but later states that you did not give it. You will be able to refer back to the contract with the student. At that point, the student may choose to implement the accommodation, and I recommend using a second contract so as not to confuse the date the accommodations on each were implemented. During the meeting, review the accommodations outlined on the letter and make sure that the accommodations on the contract are also on that list. If a student has written accommodation on the contract that is not on the accommodations letter, please call us immediately. Either an error has been made by us, maybe we omitted an accommodation, or we will need to meet with the student to discuss the issue under the auspices of the Student Code of Conduct. If there is an accommodation on the letter that is not on the contract, please ask the student why it is omitted. It may be an oversight, or the student may not want to implement it. Ultimately, it's the student's decision, but a discussion may be a good idea to ensure the accommodation is truly not needed. If everything looks correct and you have no questions, go ahead and sign and date the contract. We recommend to students that they implement accommodations at the beginning of the semester, but we cannot require it. Students may implement at any time with reasonable notice, but they may not go back and request retroactive accommodations so that a student who does poorly on a test cannot ask for a redo with accommodations. They can simply implement them for the next test. Please be aware that requesting a testing accommodation an hour before the test may or may not be reasonable, depending on the format of the test. Is it online? Is it in person? Your schedule. Do you have back-to-back classes and cannot adjust the time in Canvas, or cannot get a test and the proctoring form over to ARC? If this is an issue, please call us immediately. This is a copy of an accommodations letter. Please call us at your earliest convenience if you have any questions or concerns. Also, please note that we have recently changed the relaxed attendance guidelines and verbiage. Again, please make sure there are no accommodations on the contract that are not on the accommodations letter, and never sign a blank contract. Some faculty prefer to complete the contracts together with the students, while others prefer to complete them ahead of time. Either way is fine. This is a copy of the instructor-student contract. This is the triplicate form. You will need to complete a contract for each class you're teaching. Some students implement all accommodations in every class, or only some of them. There are many factors students take into consideration when deciding whether or not to implement accommodation. It may be how challenging your course is. Is it within the student's strong subject area, or is it a weaker area? How you teach and test on material, whether or not they have taken similar classes in the past. The note-taker slip is to be read verbatim in order to ensure the confidentiality of the student implementing the accommodation. Have a plan as to what you will do if multiple students volunteer or no student volunteers. We typically ask you to read the slip in 2 classes if no one volunteers, but between those classes, please contact us to let us know a note-taker was not found. The accommodations coordinator can review your roster for someone who has been a note-taker before and reach out to them to request that they become the note-taker for your class. If there is no one on the roster who has been a note-taker before, then we may ask you to identify a student who appears to take good notes, and the accommodations coordinator can reach out to that student. There can only be 1 note-taker per class, and if multiple students in your class are approved for a note-taker, we will have the note-taker make multiple copies of the notes. Note-takers have 24 hours after your class to bring the notes to ARC and make a copy free of charge. They will then put the notes in a file folder that has the class, section, day, time, and professor's name written on the tab. We do not indicate the student's name. At the end of the semester, the note-taker will be paid $60 through payroll. If at any time there is a question about the notes, we will contact you since we cannot determine whether or not they are complete. If you are not comfortable with students using tape recorders in your class, we can provide your student with a tape recording agreement form. While no one in a classroom can reasonably expect confidentiality, we understand that class discussions can result in personal information being divulged. You may tell the class to put down their pens and turn off any recording devices for the purpose of the class discussion that will not be included as part of the grade. By signing this tape recording agreement, students are agreeing that they will not share the information, acknowledging course material is under copyright protections, and that they will erase the recording upon the conclusion of class. We're happy to work with you to amend the wording of this agreement if necessary. Sometimes we have students who need sign language interpreters to access your class. Interpreters are simply a means of communication. They do not interject their opinions or any answers to questions. Qualified interpreters adhere to a code of ethics or Code of Professional Conduct, which includes maintaining confidentiality. The placement of interpreters in the classroom will depend on the classroom design and type of course. Typically, the student and interpreter work together to determine correct placement. American Sign Language, or ASL, is not a word-for-word translation from and to English. It's a meaning-for-meaning translation. If your field has specialized terms, interpreters may fingerspell or create a sign in agreement with the student. To be most prepared, we furnish a textbook so interpreters can study your material and be more proficient and prepared for class. Occasionally, we request access for interpreters to your Canvas course so the interpreters can help prepare for class and/or group assignments. Captioning of audiovisual materials will also be needed. We will typically contact you to let you know if you have a deaf or hard of hearing student in the classroom so you can ensure accessibility. Students may be approved for extended time and/or separate room for testing. You are not required to use ARC, but we are happy to proctor your exam using standardized testing procedures in our testing lab. If you choose to provide the accommodation, you must ensure the separate room you use is appropriate. Don't have students test in your office if the phone rings continuously, if you are expecting a call and have to talk, or if you have people entering your office. Not only is this a distraction, but it's a breach in confidentiality. If you do opt to use ARC, the process is to inform the students on the contract. Students will schedule the test and bring you an exam authorization form. You can complete the form and ask the student to return it to us, or you can bring it when you bring your test to us. The ARC lab has 2 cameras to monitor students in the lab. Absolutely nothing is allowed in the lab unless you indicate it on the testing form or it is an accommodation. There are multiple methods to send your test to us. You may drop off and pick up in person. You may have the Department Administrative Support Specialist drop off and pick up the test. You may have the student drop off and pick up the test in a signed and sealed envelope. You may fax or email the test to the accommodations coordinator, or you may email it to us at our general email address, arc@uncp.edu. You'll need to indicate the method of drop off and pickup on a test proctoring form. There are multiple strategies available for pop quizzes for students who have extended time. It is not considered equal access by the Office for Civil Rights to give all students extended time. You may give extended time prior to class or after class. If students test here, you may arrange with the accommodations coordinator to call students 15 minutes before class and ask them to report to ARC, thereby maintaining the integrity of a surprise quiz. The test proctoring form is designed for you to give us instructions for proctoring your exam. An unintended effect is that the student reminds you to send the test over by giving you the form. Some faculty who teach online have requested such notification, but we cannot require students to remind professors of accommodations. Once notified, it becomes the faculty's responsibility. If students implement this accommodation with the contract, but then say they don't need it for this test, please note the block at the bottom of the form that students can sign waiving this accommodation. This is for your protection in case the student does not perform well on the test and tells ARC staff they did not receive their accommodations. I hope this information on implementing accommodations has been useful and helpful. We welcome your feedback. We would love to hear from you. Please let me know if there's any information you need, anything additional we can share with you. Thank you so much for all you do for UNCP and for our students. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a wonderful semester. Are there any questions?
No, and thank you. I picked up my additional information again.
Well, good. I'm so glad. This is why we all talk together. One of us might think of something that the other one has not. So thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure. I think I may have to run through this again too, just pick up a couple other things I was.
Well, it is, the recording will be up, and if you need the slides, if there's anything I can share with you, just let me know. I'm more than happy to share.
All right, thanks. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Stay well.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.